The festive season draws to a close. Thousands of motorists and holidaymakers have made their way back home, and some already back at work. It's at this time of the year when South Africa counts its losses over the Christmas period. 1,143 people have died in 924 crashes on the roads during the festive season leading up to December the 28th. The Minister of Transport, Dipuo, is expected to announce the final figures towards the end of this month. Most accidents, according to the Department of Transport, happened overnight between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning. South Africa spends more than 300 billion rand annually on road fatalities, and this time around will be no different. The World Health Organization estimates that 1.3 million people die on the world's roads every year, while as many as 50 million are injured. Almost 3,200 road fatalities recorded around the world every single day. Now, to look at, well, what road safety costs South Africans, we are joined today by the National Chairperson of the Justice Project of South Africa, Howard Dembowski, and from the Taxi Organization of South Africa, that's Santaco, we have the Strategic Manager, Mr. Bafana Magagula. Very good morning to you, gentlemen. I suppose compliments of the season. First up is in order.
Good morning, yes, and compliments of the season to the viewers.
Good morning, Evan, and compliments of the season to all your listeners.
We've had a year where there's been a real focus on road safety campaigns, both in the media and on our roads. Can I get your, let's start with you, Howard, opening remarks after what's been another deadly holiday season?
Well, it's very clear that the message is just not getting out there. And unfortunately, the reason that the message is not getting out there is that we have insufficient traffic law enforcement throughout the year, and we tend to step it up just during the festive season, over Easter, etc., etc. We've had this discussion so many times, I'm going blue in the face. I'd like to caution people with respect to the 1,143 road deaths that were reported up to the 28th of December of 2014. It's not actually true that our road deaths are down. The fact is that during the 5-day period between the 23rd and the 28th, 93 people per day were killed on our roads. And that is a shockingly high amount of people. If we add the 186 additional lives that would have been lost between the 28th and the 30th, we would come to 1,329, which is significantly up on the 1,184 reported during the 2013-14 festive period.
Well, even from our president's desk, Mr. Philip Dipuo, we're still very much concerned about the death tolls on the roads. However, we have noticed that in terms of our taxis, the call from our Hlokomela program is loudly heard by most of the drivers, not all, but most of them, taxi drivers and taxi owners, to operate roadworthy vehicles on the roads, and the drivers to be more cautious. And also would like to thank the passengers who adhered to our calls not to allow themselves to be overloaded, and those who were phoning us, some for comments and some for complaints. And we call for more cautiousness from our drivers, that this shouldn't only happened during the festive season, but it should continue. Our plan with our Hlokomela program, with the help of both Nissan and Toyota, is that we want to be at all taxi ranks and try to distribute as much information in terms of pamphlets as possible, go on a very aggressive campaign, not only during the festive or during the Easter, but throughout the year.
You mentioned the public participation. People that use vehicles are being called to actively participate in your, especially with a phone line that you've launched last year. Tell us about public participation. Are people that are using public transport, are they looking out for themselves when they use that facility?
Even most of them, yes, they do. Though there are still problems that some of them still just believe to get home than to concentrate on their safety, because during our roadblocks we've discovered that a few vehicles are still overloaded, especially with people coming with more luggages instead of sending luggages via other means, because our vehicles are actually made to carry passengers. I think that's another call we want to make more and more louder, so that our passengers should be aware that when that vehicle is pulling a trailer which is actually loading a capacity that is even higher than the vehicle itself, it becomes a danger to them.
Absolutely becomes a danger to everyone on the road. And I travelled by car down to Cape Town and back over the last couple of weeks, Howard, and what I saw was absolutely scary. There's a total disregard for the rules of the road. A lot of it has to do with people driving tired, I would think. When you get tired, your concentration goes and your decision-making goes. And how do you deal with that, especially over this period, if you look at the next week really being peak hour as people travel back before the school holidays starts from holiday destinations and so forth? This next week, how do we deal with that?
It's a very difficult thing, unfortunately, to deal with, because it comes down to people policing themselves. Now, yes, traffic authorities can police our roads, and they have to. They need to do it on a regular basis. But measuring the fatigue of a person by asking them a question as to how long have you been driving for, etc., is a very difficult thing. It's a non-scientific process.
Yeah.
And Western Cape traffic authorities actually prevent people from continuing driving if they feel that those people are fatigued. But there's no provision in the law for that, and that is problematic. But people need to understand that it is highly irresponsible of you to drive for more than 200 kilometers or 2 hours without taking a break. That taking a break means getting out of your car, stretching your legs, refreshing yourself with refreshments, etc. But the fact is that aggressive driving and bravado remains one of the biggest killers on our roads. People don't obey the rules of the road because they think that they can beat the rules of physics. The fact is, it's law that you need to wear a seatbelt, but a lot of people don't. They think they can beat physics. You can beat the man-made laws, but you can't beat physics, and it's a very, very sad set of circumstances.
Mr. Magagula, we're going to put some pictures on of some of the problems we have on the roads with regards to public transport and the transportation of people. We continually see this kind of thing where people are transported en masse on open-top vehicles. That's against the law. How do you view that? And within your industry, how are you coming to terms with that kind of thing?
Well, Eben, this is actually very bad. I don't know how to deal with it. I think Howard has already mentioned that the people themselves need to police themselves. The people who get themselves loaded in that bakkie like that should actually first, each and every person should ask himself, do I want to arrive alive where I'm going?
Yeah.
Or do I want to risk my life and just tell myself I want to reach where I'm risking that I may not reach? Such a behavior really needs a call from, I mean, not only a call from us as safety observers, but also from people themselves who must save their own lives. I'm not talking about the driver who drives that bike.
You're talking about the passenger having to take responsibility, and that's probably the only way to deal with that kind of thing, overloaded taxis, overloaded buses, and so forth. I want to ask you, Transport Minister Dipuo came out, late last week, told us that most accidents in South Africa happen overnight. Yeah. And we also see that a lot of the, let's call it professional transporters in your industry, in logistics and so forth, also transport goods and people overnight over far distances. Yeah. Within the taxi industry, how are you dealing with that issue of driving overnight and transporting people overnight?
Look, I think at this point we also working a plan to look at how best can we deal with it. But let me also indicate that if you stop most of these taxis that travels overnight, most of them, that is 90% of them, are not taxis that lives from taxi ranks.
Yeah.
It's private taxis or private kumbis,
yeah.
that most of them crosses the border. In most cases, if you go, for argument's sake, to Wanderers or Durban station, you will not find a taxi leaving the taxi rank with such the loads and trailers that are so overloaded that you see on our roads. Now, mainly it goes back to say, who are the people being transported in those vehicles? Do those people take care, or are they cautious? Are they cautioned about their safety? Do they understand what the risk they put themselves on? And I think that more and more education of that nature needs to be taken into account.
Howard, let's talk about law enforcement, because that's one of the key elements within the whole scenario. I was pulled over on my way back to Johannesburg, about an hour outside, or 2 hours outside of the city, just past Kroonstad, for doing 131 in 120 zone, which is just over the speed limit. But I put that down to really wanting to get home, so I speeded up a little bit. It wasn't a criminal act. I was slightly over. When I was pulled over, the guy didn't want to give me a fine. He wanted me to give him money. Is that part of our problem?
Corruption is a huge problem, even. And I'm going to say to you that the attitude of it's only a little bit over the speed limit is a shocking attitude, and a lot of people have it.
Thank you,
People
Howard.
don't understand what the word limit means. It's not a target to be exceeded, it's a limit. But the fact is, just this past week, in fact, over a period of 2 days, New Year's Day and the 2nd of January, we've had 2 sets of video evidence of JMPD cops soliciting bribes taking place and getting published on YouTube. Corruption is so rife in this country, it's ridiculous. And the sad part of it is that our authorities are not taking this problem at all seriously. In fact, in the second instance, the station commander at Honeydew Police Station allegedly said that the cop can't be arrested because no crime has been committed because money didn't change hands. Yet you have this cop saying, give me $200, we can forget about the fact that you're driving under the influence of alcohol. This is a huge, huge problem. The other big problem, when we talk about crashes taking place in the late hours of night and early hours of the morning, is South Africa generally does not have a 24/7 traffic enforcement authority. There's only one in the country, and that's the Western Cape, and yet we choose to ignore this fact.
Finally, conclusion, final arguments from the both of you. We're going to deal with education shortly. Matric results very much uppermost in people's minds. I want to ask you, road safety, should it not be then made part of the education curriculum in South Africa in order for us to take the kind of step forward that we need to in saving lives on our roads? Mr. Magagula?
Well, during the days of Minister Hadebe, we've made that proposal that it should be part of the curriculum, not only at high school level, actually from grade R and up, because that little child becomes a pedestrian who uses the road from then, not only when he's ready to drive a vehicle. And also, we are still appealing even to the present minister, Minister Dipuo Peters, to look into this, that a taxi driver should not be allowed to even obtain that PDP prior to him having gone a certain course. We are proposing, say, at least a 2 weeks course, one on customer care, 2 on defensive driving, and 3, then the K53 should be upgraded and be made different for a person who's going to transport lives.
Howard, final remarks for me.
Well, I agree that we need to start educating people from junior school level. And in fact, it's done in Zimbabwe. And we like to point fingers at Zimbabwe as being backward in comparison to South Africa. The fact is that that has to happen. But we also need to re-educate the drivers on our roads. We really do. And I firmly believe, and JPSA firmly believes, that every 5 years, when you go to renew your driving license, you should undergo a retest. And trust me, a lot of people are not happy with that proposal at all.
They won't be happy. It's a very difficult test, I think, for most people to pass in the first place. I suppose that's why there's so many underhandedness that goes with it. But that's where we run out of time today. Thank you for joining us again. From Justice Project South Africa, Howard Demboski is the chairperson and also the strategic manager of Santaco, the National Taxi Association, Mr. Bafana Magagula. Thank you very much for joining us today, gentlemen. Let's have a